The other man's daughter told me everything. Huge immense story told short. November 28th was D-Day for me. Daughter of the EOM, a former pastor of ours, informed me of her dad and my wife's close friendship she thought was an affair. I've denied it at first, and then admitted to it being an E-only, which turned out to be a lie. They met up in Vegas last year and spent 2 nights together. She chose to stay with me, but I found out in April the affair had only gone underground. Did not realize how close to divorcing me my wife was. I gave her my ring back and told her it was over. She begged me for another chance and wrote the NC letter and then promptly emailed the OC to him she loved him. Her heart was breaking and I made her write it. We have been in counseling the whole time. My wife suffered excruciating pain the last several years from degenerative discs in her back. Lots of painkillers, antidepressants, premenopause, empty nest syndrome. Her perfect storm, I suppose, but I make no excuses for her actions. For my part, I have been an obsessed working for years now, and a pretty negative distant husband at times. She now leaves the phone where I can see it, has given me access to her Facebook and email accounts. Our bonding life is slowing, rekindling as much as she can after her spinal fusion in February. She tells me things I have not heard in years about how much she needs me, sends me songs at work, and we chat during the day on FB and text. This guy, our former pastor, had his hooks in deep, had my wife almost convinced to leave me to join him in our old hometown, as if that was going to work out with no problems. That may seem a little scattered, and I can fill in relevant details for any questions asked. But to get to the point, here is my question. My wife is very good with computers and knows at least in the past I am not. I have become quite adept at them over the last 6 months. I've seen many emails she thought were deleted and many videos and pictures she thought the same about. But in the end, how do I know he's gone and will stay gone? I would contact his wife, but she is terminal with Alzheimer's. Contacting his kids, even though they're in their 30s, seems rash to me if it is over. But they have been lied to as well. I don't want revenge, except possibly to tell him of the other online affair my wife had going at the same time with an ex-boyfriend of hers. An online cam time and texting back and forth. My thought process is that it would terminate any romantic link he has for her. I just want my marriage back and him gone. And forever. It occurs to me that with all the lies and cover-ups my wife has thrown at me, that I may just be stuck in discovery mode. I want that to be over, but how can I be sure? Ever. Some details that might help. He lives over 120 miles away. So moving really doesn't seem needed. Will keyloggers and spyware show up on our virus scans? I can't seem to get a definitive answer. I am really trying to be a Christian here and forgive. Our counselor in private has told me perhaps I should expose the affair details to his kids. But in the end, she told me that it had many risks for and against. It hurts to realize the truth that my wife has lied to me all this time, and even after I found out, I hear the axiom used over and over: once a cheater, always a cheater. But I really think through all my research, my wife just got caught up in something attractive and secret and couldn't stop. She has always had many guy friends, and an addiction to... I term an addiction to online gaming and the internet in general. With the new smartphones, how am I supposed to keep tabs on it all? In the end, it's her choice. I just want to know, so I can leave if it strikes up again. I am fully committed to saving my marriage, but not being taken for a ride again. Not sure about serial, but I cannot rule it out. There are multitudes of affairs in her family. It seems she grew up with that as her example. I am sure exposing the former pastor to the truth about her doings with the former boyfriend would grenade him, but it also might make him contact her. I should add that DD version 2 was April 27th, so things are still fresh and raw for me. She says it is over, and I know my wife is a good and giving person. I think she needed to be needed, and the kids leaving the house and me engrossed in work and night school left her without that feeling of being needed. The pastor was our friend, and he needed someone, and so the affair evolved. I really want to believe her after 10 years of marriage. We are making plans to renew our vows this summer on our 10-year anniversary, but part of me looks at all the time she has lied right to me, and me never knew, and tells me it may have just went deeper underground, or it may be over. I'm so up and down from day to day, it's unreal. I reached the point of divorce in April when I discovered it was still going on. I have always taken my vows seriously, and I am a man of faith. I have never so much as looked at another woman, much less allowed anything in our marriage to lead my wife to believe there was another woman. After many hours of discussion, mostly heated on my part, I made the choice to stay. I knew full well then that it would take a lot for me to trust her again, but in my eyes, she is worth the effort. Her back surgery did not leave her crippled. In fact, she's out of pain most days, and in physical therapy to return range of motion. She's at home mowing the lawn right now, so her prospects of being 90-ish% healed post-operation are good. I guess more along the lines of advice I was looking for were methods to trust, but also methods and ideas to check. I hate to say this is the life I have chosen, but it is, and I accept that. He used to be her boss when we lived there for about 4 years. His wife was a friend of my wife's, and when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, my wife's family has had many members with this disease. I think it pair-bonded the two of them. I do owe his daughter a debt I cannot repay. She helped derail the affair before my wife moved out. However, she has a tendency to run off at the mouth at church and in the community. My entire family lives in the same small town. People talk, see where I am going. I have a copy of the lie-filled letter he wrote them before Christmas when they banned him from Christmas dinner. I feel like redlining it and sending it to them, just so that they can know the truth. He ends the letter saying he's done nothing wrong, and they should respect him as their father and a loving husband to his dying wife. I almost vomited when I read it. The past is the past. It can't hurt us if we deal with it, and we have. It's the present that concerns me and the future. I hate to sound like I don't trust her, because I've always blindly trusted her, but the reality is I don't for now, and we are working on it for both our parts. I just don't know how to live a life checking on her, as I never have. Geez, that sounds bad. But the reality is for me, I am here as long as it is just her and I. If the relationship rekindles, I am gone, and I have told her that. She seems very convinced it will not. I will not. I have never asked why she seems so convinced of that. I will tell a bit about me. I come from a long line of over-obsessive workers. I'm often called to travel, and there are nights I've answered emails and calls at home until bedtime. I have run off more of my daughter's boyfriends than I care to mention, and not always in a nice way. In short, without going much further, while claiming to be a man of faith. I do not believe I was truly honoring my wife, nor seeking her in a romantic way as I should have. I am not responsible for her affair, but I am charged with being the spiritual leader of our house, a father for my kids to come to, instead of a judgmental ogre to be feared, and foremost a best friend to my wife, which we were in the beginning, but in the last 2 years, not so much. I can own that part of it. It happened. I was that man. And for that, I am led to believe that there needs to be a renewal from my perspective on those grounds. I hear what you're saying, and it makes sense for me, taken only in the light of the affair. But I am not a perfect man. I've just never cheated on her, except perhaps with my career. Her stories have been confusing to say the least. I know him. He's not a friend, but I saw him at church for 4 years. She wants me to believe that he might X himself, and she was pursuing him even after I discovered. But the reality I've gotten from the emails I read she thought she deleted is that she did try to break it off after I discovered. But he just poured on the coals to the fire. He threatened to kill himself. He talked about how he was throwing out or deleting all the things she shared with him. Every little comment was something to leverage her. It's very sickening to read. I say all that to say this. She wants me to believe that she led him astray, that he's a good and caring man, and that I should forgive him. Yeah, that's not going to happen anytime soon. In fact, the greatest blessing is that he lives so far away and out of my reach. Your marriage will never be the same as it was. Here are your choices. 1. Have a good marriage where your wife loves you and is faithful to you. This will require you to set boundaries and conditions for your wife to follow if she wants you not to divorce her. Then to monitor those conditions and initiate divorce if she doesn't follow them. Or 2. Have a marriage that is tolerable to you where your wife cheats on you behind your back, but you remain mostly unaware of it, catching her every so often with her swearing to end the affair, and then have it start up again, probably with the same other man, but maybe with a new one. This will require you to do exactly what you are doing now. If your wife loved you, she would be actively trying to do everything in her power to help you heal from her betrayal and forgive her. Her still defending the other man now is good and honorable. After how dishonorably he acted after the temporary no contact shows that she still has very strong feelings for him. She does not see what a lowlife he really is. She is still in the fog and very likely still is in contact with him, given the situation you describe and how uncomfortable you are. Why does your wife still have access to a cell phone and computer? If you gave her a choice, give up the cell phone or computer until you rebuild trust or accept a divorce. Which do you think you would choose? Your response. The other affair was with the last boyfriend she had before we met. They reconnected in 2019 before the affair with the pastor, and again in the fall of 2019, during the affair with the pastor. From the limited amount of info I have, it seems to have been an online cam kind of thing, and texting of pictures back and forth. This amazes me as my wife has never before even alluded to an interest in these types of things. The pastor doesn't know about it, only she and I do. I have located the man's wife's work address, and am only too tempted to send her the Facebook chat log I forwarded to myself while logged onto her account. I also have the idea that sending it to the pastor isn't too shabby of an idea. I am in my early 40s, my wife is in her late 40s, but to answer the age debate, here's my only hang-up with exposing the affair. If my wife has truly severed all contact and is working to rebuild our marriage, exposing the truth means it will get out in our little hometown. His oldest daughter also attends there. He is now working as a used car salesman. He is no longer pastoring. It's not that I fear losing my wife and our 10 years of marriage, although it would break my heart. Again, it's that I really don't know what the truth is. I've already prepared packets of emails, videos, pictures of cards they sent each other for mailing to his kids should I ever find them and contact again. It's that my wife is smart enough, and I am now also to realize that the internet is wide open. She can create an alternate email address and Facebook or Skype in minutes and be back up and running. So, I suppose the keylogger spyware idea is the only route to go. Can that also be done on a smartphone? She has volunteered to get a phone that does phone and text only with no internet access. And I believe that is where we are going next. I simply can't live this life of high anxiety. I look in her eyes, and she says the things she used to say to me, and I want desperately to believe. I want this to go away, and never to have to introduce my children to this reality I live in. But the reality is, and some have said it here, she lied to me for over 1.5 years, and I had not one clue. I look back, and all the signs were there. But I thought, no, not my wife. But she could lie to me now, and I would still have no idea at all. I want too much to trust her. And the reality is I don't, and I shouldn't. Thanks for the comments. I apologize for disappearing like that. We took some time off this weekend down at the lake. Everybody needed to get away. I should mention since January, we have experienced the death of my wife's best friend, and a tornado destroyed our house. That's what exposed to me the affair was still going on when cleaning out the house. There was no place to hide things anymore. I found the cards, the second cell phone she had purchased, the toys, all within a matter of days. What a mess. Graham's wife is in hospice care right now. She's been terminal with Alzheimer's for years now. But I have the email addresses for his 3 kids and many of his family. I really don't see the need to go beyond his kids for exposure. I thought to send him a package with the pictures of the materials included to show him what they would receive. But blackmail just stains my hands too. Exposure to his kids seems the only way. Thanks for the advice and reassurance. Seems as if we needed to have a talk tonight. Can't sustain this level of anxiety much longer. Just makes me tired and sick most days. I just finished emailing back and forth with his oldest son. Turns out he was also cheated on by his wife, and so he sympathizes with me. He did say he and his sisters have a few questions, and while realizing that they were being lied to, they had no hope for the truth. He did ask me, as a fellow Christian, what were my motives. I am thinking hard about this, as my first answer would be to sever the link once and for all and drag the affair out into the light. But overall, beyond the fantasy about creating a hell for this man, the likes of which he and my wife dumped on me, the answer should be closure. I am okay if our marriage fails because we couldn't work it out, but I am not okay if he is still working behind the scenes to destroy it. We have 3 grown kids, 21, 24, 26. The 2 youngest live with us still, although our middle child is getting married in October and will obviously move out then. He was home on Dupty 1, and I wasn't exactly quiet about things. I think he has some idea what is going on, but he's never asked, and I don't want to troll this out in front of the kids unless things don't work out. At that point, they will need to be told the truth. To avoid the confusion, they are all my stepchildren. Their dad never seemed to want the job, and I did, so we have always acted as if I was the dad, and they have always treated me that way. I love them as much as any parent can, but yes, for the length of time we have been married, they are too old to be mine. Sorry that question comes up a lot, so I thought I would head it off directly. I am, and was prepared to leave on DD Hash too. I had already told my wife I would stay and work things out with her, as long as it was worry. And when I found the email on her phone that morning, I walked into her room and dropped my ring and the phone on her nightstand and told her she must not have known how serious I was. She broke down and pleaded with me to stay. I forced her to open up her computer, and we went through all of her accounts and wiped him from everywhere. I went through her phone and Skype account and recorded all the usernames and IDs I could find. That is how I discovered the online fling with the former boyfriend. I realize in many eyes, and perhaps my own at times, I appear like a chump, but there is a rational brain behind these sad eyes. I want to believe in her brain somewhere, confused by the drugs in the past year and the depression and the menopause hormonal spikes, that there is something left of the life we have built inside my wife's heart, but I am prepared emotionally like I wasn't 3 months ago. I have been up, down, angry, depressed, suicidal, sad, remorseful, blamed myself, but in the end, I've come through most all of that to a place where I just want to know for sure, is it over? And I know that an answer for now at least can't come from my wife because she has lied to me for so long, even after discovery that her word means nothing to me until confirmed. Okay, well, since we are dumping, might as well put the whole truckload out here. My wife's family has a history of bipolar disorder. Her half-brother has been diagnosed with schizophrenia. My wife has been on Lexapro for mood swings for at least 5 years now. So what is normal for her? Who knows? She's post-op 3 months now with a spinal fusion and has mostly stopped taking the muscle relaxers and painkillers. But up until the surgery in February had been taking all her meds and drinking for over a year while dealing with some pretty severe back pain. Throw in the 6-week periods due to premenopause. Premenopause and the kids leaving, a tornado hitting our house, discovery of the affair, and her best friend passing. Normal is such a hard target to hit. When confronted with reality, I could see the fantasy crumble in her eyes. I have seen the emails that she wrote to him in early January this year, where she tried to break it off with him, and he threw everything at her from suicide to revealing the affair to keep the contact going. I've seen enough emails from my wife to him to know she recognizes reality. I just think she wants things to quiet down, get swept under the rug, and then we both pretend this never happened. Sorry, babe, it can't work that way for me. I really do believe that my wife got involved in something with someone she trusted. It got out of control. Is not making excuses for her. But I have made some bad mistakes in my life, and in this marriage and there has been a path of redemption for me. I have to at least leave the door open a crack, or what hope is there for recovery? She started sleeping with pajamas on for the first time in 10 years last summer. After the Vegas tryst, I guess that should have tipped me off, but it didn't. She also began sleeping way over on her side of the king bed, where before she would always snuggle up against me. I hate to admit it, but we probably were only intimate in 2019 perhaps, 0.56 times, which before that was definitely not normal. I look back at it and it seems so clear, but I really had thought that perhaps this is the way marriages go after 10 years, when you are both in your 40s. I think in many ways we are the picture of codependency. It did shock me a little when the MC told us last week that she thought the hard work was over and we could scale back to 1 visit every month. I went to counseling first on my own. After 4 trips, my wife decided she would go with me. We've only been 4 times together over the last 2 months, and one time all we talked about was the tragedy of the tornado. Wife was leery of talking to the Mick that day, because it was after .2 and she had already told the Mick that she had no more contact with the OEO, and did not want to have to admit she had lied to the Mike Lee. So she monopolized the entire hour with discussion of the tornado. I know my wife dealt with a lot of crud growing up. Stepfather attempted or did molest her. Parents both had affairs and divorced. She wound up a ward of the court. She gave away a child at 18 for adoption. First son's father physically abused her. First husband was emotionally abusive to her and the kids. So taken together, she deals with a lot of baggage, but she doesn't want to talk about it. She wants to pretend everything is fine, and she is tough. But inside I see her crying as I haven't in 10 years. It's not an excuse, but perhaps the beginnings of empathy inside me where it hasn't been before. I should also add we live in a small town in the Midwest. There are 2 counselors in our town. The next nearest town of any size is an hour away. Nearest big city is 3 hours away. Mental health professionals are not abundant here, to say the least. So, I received responses from the APM's 2 kids. I know them both from the days back in my hometown church. The eldest, the brother, has experienced an affair in his own marriage and was skeptical, but we had a pleasant dialogue. He wants a few questions answered, and wants the experience to be a healing for their family as well. I respect that with the impending death of their mother and their father's affair and subsequent fear and subsequent denial. It has torn their family apart. I started to exchange with the daughter who had notified me in November of the affair, but it went a-roary pretty quickly. She told me that she did not feel right having a dialogue about the affair, but I could send her all the materials I had, and she would find the answers herself. I don't see any reason to release these things out into the world unless I am forced to. The Pandora's box, once opened, it can never be shut. The materials I have can only be used to harm them both, not heal the situation. Then her husband emailed me and accused me of trying to hurt the OA and use his kids to do it, which seems pretty silly to me. If I wanted to hurt him, I could send these things to his work, his church, and a dozen family members in a day or two. That line of thinking really confused me. I told them both I would answer any questions that they had, but I would not send them these things. It makes me wonder if contacting them at all was a good thing. They obviously know perhaps it was pride to contact them at all. Update. I received emails back from both the daughter and the son. The daughter, who has a long history of trying to destroy her father by various means, requested I send her all of the evidence I collected. I told her I would not, knowing how she would love to use it, but told her I would answer any questions she asked me truthfully. I know this may seem a bit lame on my part, but that stuff can only harm my wife's reputation back home, and if we are truly reconciling, I don't want to harm the process. I will, however, spread it far and wide if I find her in contact with the OM even one more time, but at present, I am holding it in reserve in case of reconnect or divorce. I may owe this gal for exposing the affair, but knowing her and all of the problems she has caused in our town and church, my feeling is she would just like another opportunity to stick it to Daddy, and I don't want any part of that. The son baffled me with his response. At first he wrote me back and said he had some questions he would like answered and empathized with me a great deal as he had gone through infidelity with his own wife. He said he would think about it for a few days and get back to me. His comment was that he was disappointed that his dad had lied to him, but it was not unexpected in his knowledge of how affair exposures go. He was more focused on his mother's impending passing from Alzheimer's and did not think he wanted to add to that. I spoke to my wife last week regarding my low trust level with her and the internet. We discussed the phone and the computers at length. She handed over her 2 old iPhones and the non-functional laptop. She agreed to stay off the computer unless she was in my presence or informed me that she would be online. Whenever she is on the phone, she tells me and shows me who she is texting. Whenever she leaves my presence and has the phone with her, she leaves the phone right in front of me before she goes. I have software on a jump drive and am waiting for an opportunity to install it on her laptop. I have been researching the same for her Windows smartphone as well as monitoring her email and Facebook. She has another Facebook under her name on her original Facebook friends list, but it has been deactivated, and I cannot find an email address that will open it. That, along with the dropped phone she purchased in December, shows me how far into the fog she was and makes me wonder right now if she is out of it totally. She is not hiding the phone from me anymore and has committed to leaving it in the bedroom unless she needs to use it. And for a week it has gone well. She is no longer tied to it as she was before, although truthfully since Dee Dee as to her use of the phone had dropped off to almost nothing as well as her computer time. Thinking together it all makes me a little confused and wondering. It seems like everyone whose life was affected by this affair just seems to want to sweep it under the rug and say, let's move on and forget it even happened. I don't need it dragged out into the street, but it baffles me how his kids, who were brought into this by his choice and lied to, don't seem to have any questions. I'm watching my wife very carefully right now. It's hard to gauge since my wife has always been a little closed off emotionally, as is most of her family too. Pretty cut and dried once she has made her mind up on things. I know her well enough even after this to know that even though she engaged in things that are widely inappropriate and hurtful, she still operates fundamentally the same way. When I say she wants to rug sweep, I don't just mean about the affair. I mean it's a way of life for her. She will rant and rave about a thing, and then once her mind is made up, she doesn't want to discuss it or relive it again. I hold grudges, but my wife is better than even I can aspire to. So in seeing that her behavior is returning to normal, her daily happiness level is going back up. Her efforts to contact me daily, to tell me things and share things with me are up. It seems to me in the old manner I had of trusting her that is over. but my trust level with her is at an all-time low. I've told her that our marriage and my trust of her in it should be her highest priority, and that if she wants them, she must take it as a priority to rebuild them. Not wait for me to lead, but take charge of it herself. She seems to be, but the ideas and experiences shared here make me wary of how typical her actions were before D, after, and up until DD2. Writing a mate to Galoo, I know there is at least part of this story that will rankle a few. But I have received valued advice here, and have taken or not taken it, as my head and my heart led me to do. July 4th was our 10-year anniversary, being a little over 60-ish days after .td-2. As you can imagine, I had mixed emotions, and more than a bit of painting on a happy face. As suggested, I killed the idea of renewing our wedding vows. Wife was not unhappy, but seemed a bit confused about it. I told her it was too soon after the affair, and that from my point of view my vows were intact. That's years. I told her what I wanted was a private time for the two of us, where we could share more about what our marriage meant to us now and where we were going in the future. We spent the week at her parents' lake house, with the in-laws. Our kids are all in their 20s, so their lives were too busy to go with us. My wife shocked me a bit, as she usually doesn't go this deep emotionally with me or anyone else. She bought me a new wedding band I had expressed interest in some time back. She took off my old band and asked me to accept this new one, as the promise she made with the original had been broken by her. And she wanted to make me a new promise with the new band when I was ready to accept it, and believe her that she meant it. We spent lots of time doing things we both enjoy at the lake, but one subject that came up repeatedly was a girls' cruise she takes every year with her mother. Late 60s, and many of her chemist of bridge club friends. Not exactly the partying crowd, as many of them are pushing 70s and 80s in age, but nonetheless travel away and without me. On the drive home, I told her we should discuss it, because I was not inclined to let her go anywhere without me just yet, even though the trip is not until February. The discussion evolved into a lot of tears on her part, comments about the remorse and guilt she felt at betraying my trust, and having to be babysat constantly. She expressed to me that she was doing everything she could think of to let me know how much she loved me, how much she was sorry for betraying our life and our love, and how much having that trust back in our marriage meant to her. The discussion turned to the affairs. I asked her if she wanted to fill me in on anything she had not told me or had previously omitted or glossed over, whether for fear of hurting me or simply to hide the truth from me. She started crying a lot, and I could tell there was more. I just couldn't put my finger on it. I pulled out at a rest stop to smoke, and after much crying in the car, she came out to talk. I continued to ask her some of the small things I had written off, like a Facebook private message from a former boyfriend of hers, the father of our oldest, that was deleted 2 months ago. I noticed it, but at the time was leery about reading it. I also told her that I noticed he had left her a voicemail message on her old phone about the same time period. The week our house was hit in the tornado. I told her that I wasn't afraid of the truth, just afraid of living a lie with her, and that any more lies would result in the divorce I promised her after DT2. She looked at me and told me that he had written her to let her know he still had feelings for her, and that he wanted to know if she still had feelings for him. She told me that she had written back to him, telling him we were together, and that was it, and deleted the message. This is before the spyware went in on her computer, so I've nothing more to go on. She says that they would talk sometimes, and then he had come to a big city 3 hours away years ago. But she had researched his hotel but never went to see him. He is married with children, she assured me, and I have seen some of their old love letters from the 80s to confirm that he physically abused her, and she has no interest in him at all. He would never admit to being our son's father, even though they were in a long-term monogamous relationship, and never paid child support after he found out she was pregnant and dumped her. She claims that it caught her by surprise, and so she didn't really know if or how to discuss it with me. I imagine she was sending out the vibe, and he picked up on it or something. We rehashed some of the things about her affair with the pastor and the online tryst she carried on a couple of times with another former boyfriend. Nothing I didn't already know. Just trying to provide the atmosphere that at some point I would wish she could just paint the picture for me with no lies. I feel that she has made great strides there, but I know there is more. I am just not sure, if it is anything of any great importance too, anything worth worrying about. I finished by telling her that now that I know, we will not survive if there's this place we cannot go in our relationship. We will not survive with secrets in our past or present. I have spent more time in prayer over this than I have cared to admit, most ashamedly because I have never gone to God with anything as much as this, That hurts to admit, living most of my life as a Christian, I feel like God put me here in this life to create a life for this woman and our 3 amazing kids. And as much as it hurts from time to time, this recovery thing is almost as hard as the discovery thing. I have stopped short of telling my wife about this place, mostly because I think she would be mortified to know that our life is out here on the internet, and so is her big secret. But I have shared with her all of the insight I have gained here about truth, her stages of coming out of the fog, seeing the other man, and the chances of success with him for what they truly are. And she has been in agreement with most all of it. Some parts needed some discussion to break down the walls. She seems truly happy here with me again, and we are spending more time together than any time perhaps, except just after we were married. I am watching her for any signs. Email and Facebook are open to me. Nothing even remotely interesting, and those are on the spyware reports. I have not had an opportunity to put things on her smartphone, but she leaves it in the bedroom or in plain sight at all times, and no longer carried it anywhere if I am not going with her. In reality, once a spouse has done this to you, the complete trust I had for her is gone and can never be regained. The marriage that we had is lost and can never be regained. For the most part, what it had become, I don't think either one of us wanted. But where it came to be a choice, stay or go. Except that my wife is imperfect and had made a tragic mistake and hurt me the way no one else could, or leave and try for a fresh start with someone else. I suppose the way I look at it is this. The past can't hurt us as long as it is pulled out into the light and exposed. As long as there is nothing more in the present and no contact is maintained, I am willing to forgive and help her work through the remains of our marriage and build a new one with her, rather than see the pattern of abuse and chaos that ruled her and the kids' early life continue. But I believe in and have no problem with trust but verify. Do I consider this latest revelation and D3? Though I have found nothing to point me in that direction. I think she was sending out the vibe and this old boyfriend bit. But that was in the past, and she handled it, or so she says. Yes, I may be doing the heavy lifting right now, and perhaps I am just fencing her in. But if her remorse for what she did is true remorse, there will be nothing further. I have already set the bar for divorce if I see anything remotely suspicious, and she knows it. The ball is in her court, and so far, what I see is a person emerging from the fog and taking responsibility for her actions. It may not be in the way I would want her to, but she is doing it, and so I am not going to squash that effort. Did I think to get all the responses for the positive for what I'm trying to lead us through? No. Heck, 6 months ago, I would have called me a crazy fool. But this is that path I have chosen, sort of halfway in between extremes. I hope, my comment, I still see the divorce happening sooner or later. To be people but not trust his wife. It is just a matter of time. But if some people really want to go back to their partners after the betrayal, I mean, watching them like a hawk would be a good start, I guess. What do you think? Comment down below, sub and bell, and let's see what is next.